Is there any barrier to the technology adoption?
So I think it starts first and foremost with what asset you're referring to and what use case you're looking at. And just from our world, we kind of break things down into public chain use cases and private chain use cases. And so today, if you want to own or transact or interact with assets on a public blockchain, you need to be fairly savvy, right? You need to be able to understand how to use wallets, what different types of transactions mean. You have to have funds in there to pay gas, depending on what chain you're working on. It's just a different experience that a lot of institutional and individual investors who are more nascent to the space are frankly afraid of. That may change with regulation and with special purpose broker-dealer rules coming into play where the providers can abstract more of that away or hide the wires. We could already do that on the private permission blockchain side, which is primarily what we run on today, but not entirely. And so there, the experience is largely that hidden wires experience where investors don't have to bring their own wallet. They don't have to interact with the blockchain directly at all. All of that's taken care of through like a key management system or, a wallet vendor, et cetera. And so, like one of the big barriers is just getting comfort and education with what you're actually getting into and what those new incremental risks look like. But then you also have, just like internal barriers around how do you convince your stakeholders that it's even worth it to go down this path. And so there you have to recenter around what the value add is for what you're participating in. If it's tokenized alternatives, is it streamlined processes, easier cash movement, better interactions amongst assets. And if you're dealing with more public chain assets, this is primarily around being able to access products that you can't today. So in the case of like a money market fund and earning that relatively risk-free or riskless yield, you have to be comfortable holding those assets on the public chain and everything that comes along with that. What I will say is usually not the barrier, is the technology itself. The idea of like being able to represent an asset in token form is quickly becoming a commodity. It's a problem that's been solved. There's of course bells and whistles which are being added by the industry, but it's usually not a technological barrier. It's more of an education, comfort, and risk and control barrier.
Do people actually care about how the technology works, like the very inner workings of the technology, or they care more about how do we work with the technology, right? Because they're two different levels.
No, it's a great question. It's something that me and my colleagues talk about a lot. Is last cycle, there was much more emphasis around how does this actually work? Like what does it mean to hash something? How do the wallets, like infrastructure come together? How's my public key derived? All those kinds of things. Today, it's less about that and more about why am I doing this and like, how does this help me?
And I think from the crypto blockchain, no secret, it's got a fairly mixed reputation. So there's still this major fear factor. So I think people do care a bit more about how is this working, because only through education are we going to get that broader adoption. AI seems to have that lower barrier to entry, maybe because everyone loves ChatGPT and your regular person on the street thinks AI is ChatGPT and that's where it starts and ends. Not about the huge ecosystem that's out there. So I'd say it's mixed and it depends who your end user is from my perspective.
And yet no one knows how it works, right? I mean, even researchers in the space don't know how it works. But I think the level of comprehension is getting there, but there's still very large technical barrier to engineering your own models. It literally is rocket science. Someone asked me before, like, oh, truly, like, not just a handful of people can do it. Actually, only a handful of people can train and engineer new models. So that's like, we're at the stage where we're building rockets right now, probably like similar to what we did 100 years ago, and we're still launching them and crashing them and trying to figure out the best propulsion system for this thing to leave our backyard of experimentation. Right? That's the state of AI right now. And there is so much information and people are just struggling to catch up with it. I think the mindset is there. We were discussing earlier in preparation for that panel, like, is a mindset problem or not? I think we're way beyond this point, both with blockchain and with OpenAI. People know they have to use the technology and they're willing to invest into it. But at least in the AI space, everything is still in a very early MVP stage. And moving from MVP or POCs into production takes a lot more effort. An example in data extraction, right? If your business relies on perfectly extracted data, the difference in accuracy is single digits, right? The difference in productionizing something can be 90%, 97% accurate to 99.5. If you scale that to 1 billion type of transactions, that adds up pretty quickly. And this is where the true engineering shines in that sort of last stretch.